Welcome to BA Bootcamp. My name is Luc Vermaas and together with Gert Zwedijk, we ensure that you stay informed of the latest developments in the field of business analysis. We combine different theoretical approaches with our extensive practical experience from the field so that you immediately leave our sessions with tangible tips and ideas to put in practice in your daily work. Have fun watching, and if you want to stay informed in our latest videos, follow us on YouTube. And we're live again. So thanks everybody for joining our second episode for the BABOK Untangled series. So today we're going to talk about business analysis perspectives, which is chapter 11 of the BABOK. So we're not going in the order as the BABOK describes it themselves, because we think that it's good to do a few topics that we think make more sense to discuss a bit earlier than if we move into the next topics. A lot of things will fall more into place. That's why we take a bit of a different approach here on the order. As you can see, we're now in the second episode, so a lot more to come. The next episode definitely is also worthwhile, where we're going to talk about strategy analysis, one of the, we think, first things you should, as a BA, look at when doing starting an analysis, regardless of what perspective. You always have to look at this. So, yeah, hopefully you will be joining us as well for the next one. Follow our messages, and then you will be informed about the next episode. I think the most people that are in here by now know us, so I will not put too much time here in the introductions, but just to give you an idea, who are we again, why are we doing it? Yeah, really want to inspire other business analysts, but also learn from other business analysts or people that perform business analysis activities, and see how we can share best practices, share nice use cases, knowledge, and improve ourselves. Challenge ourselves, becoming better every day. Again, don't be afraid to unmute. Feel free to ask questions. It's an open session. We like the dynamics of questions and answers throughout the presentation. So yeah, feel free to unmute. And of course, if you want, turn on your camera, because it does have a nice view for the rest of the audience to see who's there. Perspectives. This was my kind of look when I opened the BABOK, and I saw the topic perspectives, and then I was like, huh, what? But okay, and why? But how do I then apply this into my daily work?
There's some questions concerning the perspectives. Let me begin with the what and the why, and I'll talk about the when and the how when we zoom in a minute. So what is a perspective? Perspective are lenses that give BAs focus to the kind of task they need to perform in a certain context, plus the specific techniques that can be used. For instance, it can be very helpful for BAs to understand business process models that have been met by some architect, or they may choose to model the processes themselves. This brings me to the why question. As we mentioned in an earlier episode, BAs connect the dots between many fields of expertise like architecture, strategy, and agile. When they understand strategy and architecture, they will be able to translate business needs into solutions that will lead to better business outcomes. So it helps BAs to do their work better than without the perspectives. And we'll see that in a minute. So look, when you show the next slide, you see that there's 5 perspectives according to the IIBA. And they say, well, there can be more than those, but these are the most common perspectives. First, there's Agile. Then there's business intelligence, information technology, business architecture, and BPM, business process management. We'll have another order than you see here. We'll start with business architecture in the next slide. Luke, can you show the next slide? Okay, suppose you're a BA. As a BA, you are being involved in a business change initiative at a strategic level. In this case, it may be helpful to look to the enterprise through a business architecture lens. And that means you must be aware of the fact that every enterprise is a complex system of components, all working together to reach a common goal. For instance, there's components that have to do with what the company does, like capabilities, products and services. And there's components that deal with the why, the question, the why question. The company does things like vision, strategy, and tactics, and also policies, rules, and regulations. Business architecture is the discipline that maps all these components, including their relationships. As a BA, it's a major advantage to know at least something about business architecture to make sure that the initiative you're part of aligns with the components of the business architecture. And it may even be the case you contribute to the business architecture. So if you show the next slide, you see the TOGAF ADM cycle. That's the orange circles you see on the left. Well, all these orange circles, they relate to each other. Because there's a lot to say about TOGAF, which stands for the Open Group Architecture Framework. We zoom into this orange circle that is a business architecture, and that's actually part of the enterprise architecture. If you look at this yellow layer, the business layer, you can start modeling your enterprise, your organization, using another language which is called Archimate. So you see an example of an Archimate model that shows on top what the business service is, claims processing in this example, and it also shows who is taking part of this process that leads to this business service. So you have a business service that's this shape, and that's being realized by a business function. And that's this symbol you see in the right upper corner. To make sure you have this business function, you have a couple of business processes, and that's being shown by the arrow inside. And you can also have collaborations, and you have different roles working on these processes. So this is an example of a language, Archimate, you can use as part of your TOGAF ADM circle to make sure what your company does and how all these components relate to each other. This may be very helpful for the BA to maybe model these kind of pictures yourself, models, or you may use that as an entry, as a starting point to model your business processes at a higher detail level, as we will see later. You can skip this one, Luke. Yeah, one more thing about business architecture is that this is, of course, just an example. In practice, you may find that other frameworks and techniques are much more helpful to you. For instance, you can use the SCORE framework, which stands for Supply Chains Operating Reference Model, or ETIL for Service Management. So these are typically frameworks you can use to have a good starting point for your analysis. Okay, then there's the business process management lens perspective. Well, the triangle you see here has some overlaps with the business architecture in that it shows the business process architecture as part of the business architecture. And for most BAs, the BPM perspective is mainly interesting at the second level, the process level. You see here, and you see there it has as is and to be processes. So you can use your business process architecture at level 1 as a good starting point to start modeling more detailed processes. We'll see it in the next slide. And you could do that for the as-is situation, but more importantly, you could also do that for the to-be situation. So you can model your process to be. And of course, then there's the gap analysis between these two. You can use a language like BPMN for that, or you could use UMN activity diagrams as also being used to make sure what your company is going to do to find out your business requirements. And these are all being used for the third level, which shows the implementation level, which has two important components. That's the IT development part, and that's the human resource development part. So human beings and IT. And we'll talk about IT in a minute. So as what I told you in a former episode, BAs are important in building bridges between strategy and operations. And I think you can see that in this triangle as well. Okay, Luc, you can comment on this slide.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight because this is actually currently definitely one of the perspectives I'm working in my current role, being a process lead, in this case for a sales organization, where with the lens of a with the process BPM lens, I'm now looking at the organization. So really going from how is the value chain set up, then going in, which is basically defined or designed as the level 1 process, high level. Where are your steps that generate value for the company, and what are your supporting activities in doing so? But then really going a step deeper and say, okay, but then doing this operations, what does it think? Oh, marketing and sales, what does that then actually say? So, okay, we need to do prospecting, we need to do quoting, we need to do performer credit check, we need to send contracts. And then we do that for different customer segments. So you really drill it down layer by layer. So typically you would say you work from level 1 to level about 6. Which is an image you see on the right hand side, which is really the BPMN 2.0 diagram that is going to the level of activities, even on is it user-based, system-based, business rule-based, script-based, already preparing, again, taking the perspective of IT, building a process such that somebody working within product development, so BA that is gathering requirements, really sees, okay, what functions a system should be able to provide in this process, and what a human being should be doing, and based on that can help with designing a product within the IT department. So it's not that one perspective does it all, right? It's really also often a combination of, okay, one perspective focuses on this part, and then in order for another BA working in another perspective can then take over and put their lens on it, and then digest it into user stories, requirements, etc. So I think this is a really nice overview to see, okay, as a process perspective, you work on different levels, where the value chain is more, I would almost say, business architecture work, but then writing down the level 2 as displayed in the slide earlier, where you really process design, and where you come into the level 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the images on the right hand side. And as I can see now, it really helps the organization find waste. So, okay, where are steps that we should actually not do, or where are systems used that are already targeted as legacy systems and we should probably remove, so you can already hand over this flow saying, hey, in the to-be situation, these systems should be removed or be replaced for other systems, etc. So yeah, that was a nice addition. typically people working in a process organization, BPM organization, you have a lot of stakeholders. Also, a business analyst can have multiple hats, or maybe more business analysts can work in the same initiative, where you can have people that are really looking at the process, really analyzing it. But you can also being the one modeling it. It does require a specific skill set, understanding BPMN 2.0. And now with the whole 2.0 variant, there's a lot of new things you can add, like I said, with differentiation in business rules, scripting, manual work, system provided information. And so you really have to be, well, probably doing some specific education to make sure that you can also model in the correct way. And you have then the designers, but they go really hand in hand, right? And then often it's supported by a process manager, somebody who understands the end-to-end process, knows where currently some of the bottlenecks are, and is really guiding the BAs into, hey, please focus on these areas. Depending on the size of the project, a project manager can be involved to also lead the change initiative. And then, of course, a very important part, the business stakeholders here. It's the business process owner that is often involved in this, that has a business responsibility, looking at, okay, if we change processes, how does it affect my KPIs? Where will be people need to change the way of work they do today? And then make sure that that change is managed down to the functional managers and the staff, because they are ultimately the ones that need to then follow and work with the new process, which often are tied back into the new products or solutions they will get to do their work more efficient, faster, or better. But in the end, that change needs to be managed as well. So a lot of stakeholders, but really key that you have these people in your scope when you work in this perspective, because they are all important. Going to the next one.
Yeah, thinking about the last slide you showed, I was thinking about the Dutch soccer team. Maybe you can show it, all these orange
yes
figures.
It was a bit inspired on the whole football team,
yeah.
I must say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, IT. Well, I can say who's not working on IT these days. Well, it's not that long ago that banks were places you could physically go to deposit your money. But these days, banks have become IT companies, and many physical offices have been closed. Booking a holiday is also much different than, let's say, 20 years ago. What I'm saying here is that it's hard to imagine a solution without at least some part of IT in it. This means a lot of BAs work on IT on a day-to-day basis. So when we have a look at the next slide, yeah, your BA job title may have come with different roles. So you could be a BA, of course. You could also be a system analyst. You can be a business process owner, an IT business analyst. Well, there's many roles you can have. You can also be a tester, for instance, for part of your project. Or you could be a COTS representative, like commercial off the shelf, that is, like ERP system, like SAP. What I'm trying to say is that IT is a very broad perspective, and it comes with, well, system development. It comes with BI, and we're talking about BI a little bit later. But it also is maybe development. Maybe you do some query work, or maybe UX work. It has a lot to do. It's a lot about IT. Yeah, if you show the next slide, Luke, then there's actually three kinds of system development frameworks, approaches, I have to say. First, there's predictive. Then there's adaptive. And the third one is agile, of course. We'll talk about agile a little bit later in this episode. Predictive is all about, plan-driven. It has a formal way of working to it. Each phase is completed before the next one begins. And of course, this is also known as the waterfall approach. Yeah. The other one is the adaptive approach, and some of you may recognize this one. This is the unified process, sometimes called the rational unified process. There's different types of unified processes. It's also phased, but it uses iterations and increments to learn from feedback cycles. This is not yet agile because the product scope is determined in the first phase. That's the inception phase you can see. And the product scope doesn't change anymore. So after this phase that stops here, you have a milestone and that says, well, the product scope is determined. We know who the stakeholders are. We know what the needs are of the stakeholders, and we know what the system features will be. And then in the elaboration phase, we can start building software as we do in the construction phase. And you see different disciplines. One of the disciplines is requirements. You see that's a difference between the predictive way of working, in which you do all the requirement work in just one phase, in one stage of your project. While in the adaptive, you keep on doing the requirement work from inception all the way to transition. So that's really different. So I think a lot better. I worked on this one when I worked for the CBS, the Central Bureau of Statistics. And these are actually the things you see here. E1, E2 are all iterations. So you iterate, you show the implementation discipline is about coding. So it's about the programming, the new software. And you see that you start programming in the first phase. So that's really different than the predictive approach. Nowadays the predictive and adaptive approaches are being called the traditional approaches. And in these kind of project, BAs are engaged to elicit, document, and manage requirements. And they use all kinds of techniques to do this, like interviews, user stories, and use cases. So user stories is typically something for Agile, as we see later. But interviews, use cases. So especially in this, you can use use cases and activity diagrams. So that's more UML oriented. We'll spend a couple of boot camps on all these topics. So we'll see that later in later topics, later episodes. Then there's the next one. That's business intelligence. Business intelligence has a lot to do with data, of course, and data is sometimes called the new gold. For instance, obtaining personal data and sales data from customers is extremely valuable for marketing companies. But in some cases, data itself isn't worth anything, but needs to be processed to information and to knowledge to be able to make the right decision. And that's the next slide. That's actually what business intelligence is about. So you start data mining. On the left, you see there data which is being processed into information, which is being processed to knowledge, and the knowledge is being used for a shared understanding to make sure you do the right decisions as a company. Yeah. On the right, you see the same picture, and there you see you may have different data sources like external systems or internal systems or other sources, and you start combining all these pieces of data into what's called a data warehouse. So you have different data marts where you use data from and extract data from all these places into a data warehouse. And this data warehouse can be used to do data analytics, of course, and make decision out of these important information. As a BA, you may be a person who is more on the data side of this picture. So you may be a data architect, a data analyst, or a data scientist, or you may be more on the decision side of the picture, and then you would be more like a BI functional analyst. So you help make knowledge and information out of the data to make important decisions. So to give the managers the information they need to be supported to make decisions. Yeah, well, the last one is Agile, and I think besides IT, I believe Agile is the perspective that has impacted the BA role the most in the last decade. For this reason, the IIBA has written an extension on the BABOK, especially on Agile, as you can see in this picture. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, as you can see, probably you know these two very well. On the left, you see the Scrum framework. On the left, you see SAFe Scrum framework. And both are frameworks. Well, Agile and frameworks, we'll do another episode on that. But maybe you can, as you look closely, you don't see a BA role in either of them. So there's no job title BA in Scrum, and there's no job title BA or role or even in SAFe. Does that mean that the BA role isn't needed anymore? That might be true, but I think BA work still needs to be done. I think BA work is maybe even more important when you do Agile than before. So I think the next slide shows that.
Yeah, I think it's indeed interesting to see, because basically what these two frameworks imply, looking at only the images, it's saying, oh, the business exactly knows what they want, and the teams can then start build it.
Yeah.
But the whole idea is that often the business indeed doesn't really know yet what they want, because either they don't know what is possible, right? Because it's also bad. So often people think in the form of a BA being the one that is, trying to get the business needs and get them to IT. But to me, it's also the other way around. And as a BA, you're responsible to provide insights and ideas into the minds of the business of what IT can do for them, to change and open up whole new doors, which basically comes back to one of the previous sessions we talked about. From design, you get new requirements, and it's really by visualizing, by showing demos, inspiring videos or things to show to the business. You as a BA can also kind of steer the whole requirements sessions and really get that to a whole new level. So yeah, I do agree with you that I'm not really understanding why the BAs are not in those frameworks.
Yeah, well, I think BA work still needs to be done, but it's being done by different different roles in your project teams or product teams.
If I may share,
of course, please.
A small experience. It has to do with working in a Scrum team, and all of a sudden there is like a bug or a production distortion. Most of the time, the product owner is not aware of such a thing. It's because it's on the spot. It's happened at night. And what I see is that everybody shouts for the business analyst. That's my experience. Someone who is keen with requirements, also with the past, the history of the system, and the role of the product owner in this case is that he or she is managing the business stakeholders, especially if it's a priority one distortion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think that I'm almost often the first one being asked, like, how does this happen? How can we prevent this? Right? It's really you as a business analyst, you often know most about the context, but also the details of the
Right.
context, and can tie the dots together on system A and B and C that are probably all involved in managing this nice little thing on the front end. So no, I totally agree with you that yeah, we are kind of the secret sauce.
Yeah, it's a secret. I think that's a
Secret
nice one.
sauce.
Secret
That's
sauce.
a new one.
Yeah.
Maybe we should call this a secret sauce. BA Bootcamp secret sauce. Yeah, well, would be nice.
Yes, and also if you see, well, you showed us the safe framework.
Yeah.
I don't know even know if it was the extended version, but yeah, that's also nice to see, because it's about integration, but then on the for instance on a team level, which there is also a big part for the business analyst. In practice, what I see, because I'm working currently at Triodos Bank as a Scrum Master, because yeah, they need someone who can help with the integration, but also with the communication. But you see that role is taken by the luckily by the business analysts, which are called information analysts, by the way. But that's a different topic, I think. So talking about the BA setup, I think it's good to have that in place, especially if you are in a BA role.
Yeah, I think we'll do a different episode on this, on Scrum and BA, and maybe Safe and BA. That would be very nice, I think. So yeah, of course, there's plenty of occasions for BA to do the work in a safe environment. Yeah.
Okay, but continue. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, this I want to show you this picture because I think this is a picture that says what actually happening. So the delivery is Scrum is about delivery, right? So if you look at the Scrum picture on the last slide, it looks like the product backlog is just there. It comes. Maybe you can show it, Luke. Here and in the Scrum picture, the last slide. Yeah, you can see here inputs from executives, team, stakeholders, customers, users. So it looks like they fall out of the air. So they're just there, and we put them on a backlog. Okay, but how do you find the right material for your product backlog? How do you do that? I think that's what business analysis is about. So if you could go back to the next slide. This actually says there's two circles. There's one circle that has to do with delivering requirements to the customers, products and yeah, products that businesses and stakeholders need. The other circle is about discovery, like finding what kind of business needs do exist. What do stakeholders want? And translate these into features that can be put on the backlog. And I think here you have a lot of effort to make sure you do the right things. So effectivity, doing the right things, and this is about efficiency, doing things right. I think that's where the BA role comes in, where BAs play an important part. That's discovery. So eliciting information, eliciting the real needs instead of just finding out what somebody wants. That's one. And the other one is about refinement. I think in practice, I see that the BA role really adds value to the refinement of the product backlog items. Yeah, so refinement in a way of like modeling detailed requirements as use case descriptions, for instance, or modeling them. Yeah, really gives much more clarity on what to build as a team than if you just work on PBIs. Okay. If you want to react, please react. Okay. The discovery, you can do this at different levels. So the delivery you saw on the last slide, you see again on this slide, and the discovery you can have on two different levels, on a strategy level and on an initiative level. So actually, this is from the BABOK itself, from the Agile extension of the BABOK. And they're talking about 3 planning horizons. So firstly, of course, you have the strategy level. First, you have to think, what do we want to do as a company? What's important? What goals do we have? What objectives do we have? To realize all the initiatives, or to realize your strategy, you may come up with different initiatives, like business change initiatives or projects, programs, things like that. That's the second level of planning. So first, strategy. What are you going to do with your strategy? Well, you need tactics. So the initiatives are tactics level. Projects, for instance. And maybe you come up with, well, we want to develop a new information system, for instance. So that's initiative level. And then there's delivery, of course. People have to work to make sure the IT system will be developed. And well, typically Scrum teams are working on this level. So Scrum is all about delivery. And I think BAs work at all 3 levels. So BAs work on strategy level, BAs work on initiative level. It's very important to make sure strategy ends up in operations and will lead to the delivery of software, of IT products. What I think this is very important is that you have feedback cycles. So within each planning horizon, you have a feedback loop from the decisions you make, and you learn as you go. So you learn at a strategy level, from decide back to feedback and learn. To decide, of course, that ends up with a lower level. That's this area of arrow and this arrow. And you learn at each separate planning horizon. But you also learn from a lower level. So here at the delivery planning horizon, you learn things and you decide to change things at an initiative level. And the same you do for initiative back to the strategy level. And I think that's what Agile is all about. Doing things, plan things, but don't plan everything ahead. Just plan enough. Yeah, plan enough. And that's called the rolling wave planning. So like a wave coming from sea to the beach. That is, of course, a very big movement. You do the details only at the last part. So the last part of the big wave, you start doing things in a more detailed way. So planning at this level, and at this level, and align them. So make sure you deliver things that help you to make sure your initiative becomes realized, and do the things at an initiative level to make sure your strategy will be realized.
Yeah, maybe to give an example, right? Because I think if you look at agile way of working, that's very commonly used in delivery, right? So, oh yeah, we're gonna deliver a product in an agile fashion. So you have this loop of indeed your refinements, your whole sprint cadence, and you're doing your retrospective, so you're getting your feedback, but it's all within that closed loop of delivery. And I think what this picture says, and then first I also didn't really understand this picture, but now I kind of indeed understand it, also knowing that from the context in which I'm working now, where indeed there's strategy, there are multiple initiatives, and we're trying to build products, which is then in a delivery mode. Then we now see that some products don't really achieve that outcome of basically what that initiative should be achieving. Therefore, we are now really focusing on getting the feedback from our delivery teams into also the initiative, which are often other stakeholders, other people involved, right? In delivery, you're with your sprint team, with your product owner, but maybe within an initiative, you have much more business stakeholders as well than that are in the delivery mode. It's often the manager of the managers that you're working for in the delivery mode are also in there. So because there are different stakeholders, they also should learn about the feedback you get during your delivery cycle. So it is, although it seems like it's a few simple arrows, really getting this on the table as a BA, making sure why is this important? Well, in order so that we can stay agile also in our way of planning forward the bigger initiatives, the programs, instead of only looking at like, hey, what's the delivery of this product by the end of next month?
Yeah, exactly. This is learning as you go. And this is typically, okay, we'll start an initiative. We don't know exactly what to do, but we can start doing things we do know. And we start building things, and we learn from stakeholders by showing the product we have realized. And we hear new feedback. We get new requirements, so we put it on the backlog, and we start developing more and more things. That's the agile way. I think Scrum is all about delivery, but SAFe has all these planning horizons in it. So SAFe really does have the three planning horizons. So that's what was one thing I wanted to mention. So here you see the same picture on the bottom of this picture, the strategy level, the initiative level, and the delivery level. Well, you see here, that's where we all started with business architecture. That has to do with what's the mission, what's the vision of the organization, to find out what kind of strategy you need. So the business strategy is, well, what journey is the company going to make in the next couple of years, and what kind of tactics, initiatives are necessary to get where we want to go. That's typically strategy level things. The initiatives lead to product visions. So somebody who is accountable to build a new product or build a new service that will lead to your business goals has a vision of what the product or service may be. So that you really need a product owner or product manager who has a vision of the product or service that's going to be there. Then there's the product roadmap. So that you could say, well, that's some kind of strategy for your product or service. What are we going to do at a very high level to make sure this product will be there within a couple of months or maybe years? Okay, so that's the strategy for a product. And then there's a release plan. A release plan is, well, what features does the product have to make sure you can release it into production and start selling it to customers. Actually, I had a release plan conversation with the product owner this morning before this session to make sure, okay, we have a big product backlog. What features need to be in the next release? What do you need within, let's say, the next 2-3 months? What do you want? So then that will be the release backlog. So a release backlog is part of the product backlog. It's the part the team is going to consider for the next 2-3 months. Okay. Within that, you need, of course, an iteration plan. So this afternoon, I will have a sprint planning meeting. and we have a look at the release backlog to decide what we will develop the next sprint. So that's typically an iteration, making an iteration plan. And within the iterations, of course, within the sprints, we have our daily stand-ups, our daily scrums, which is a daily work plan. So I think this picture shows us you can plan at different levels. You can plan at a strategy level. You have to plan at a strategy level. You have to plan at an initiative level or product level, and you have to plan at a sprint level, an iteration, a delivery level. And of course, this leads to new software or new ways of working, and there you learn from that to to adjust your way of working all the time within the planning horizons and across the different planning horizons. So that's what this picture is about. Okay, well, who is a business analyst in an agile team? Well, a BA may be a BA, as you can see here. A BA may be one of the team members. A BA may be a product owner. A BA may be a Scrum Master. I'm a Scrum Master myself in practice, so I combine the BA work with the Scrum Master work and an Agile coach work. So the BABOK guide only says, well, there's 3 roles, but I think there's plenty of them. So you can have, if you use SAFe, for instance, you could be one of the other roles that is being used there. Yeah, maybe a product manager, for instance. Okay. Reactions. Okay. Agile brings also a lot of new techniques. Well, user stories I mentioned, but also things like a product roadmap. I already mentioned that one as well. Backlog management, of course, it's typical for Agile to use backlogs, and you can combine that, of course, with behavior-driven development, with job stories. Well, I can mention them all, but these are typically techniques that are being used by a lot of Agile frameworks and methods. Look,
Yeah,
like
just
you have
people working with any of these, because even for me, there are a lot of things in there that I never worked with or never saw. Just curious to see if people work with these kind of techniques. I think backlog management is quite, everybody who works with Scrum knows it. Retrospectives might be a known
exactly
thing, and spikes, but just curious to see if people work with other techniques as well.
Yeah, typically is a relative estimation. So planning poker, for instance, is typically being used by Agile teams.
Yeah.
Planning workshops, of course. I was talking about a release planning. We have sprint planning, so you can do that as a workshop. A minimum viable product. So that's typically being used for finding out whether a product is going to be viable or not. So you're just trying to find out whether some features in a product, whether they work for your customers or not. So that's typically that's even the lean startup way of thinking. So that's part of Agile as well. Another one is value stream mapping. Value stream map comes from lean. So Agile and lean have a lot in common. So a value stream mapping is actually more a lean thing, but you can use it for Agile as well. So the DA, the disciplined Agile, now has the DA flex value streams, which start with customer and end with customer. So I think that's a really a good thing to use new techniques to find out what to do to come together as an organization. So some organizations have a lot of islands, like departments who do their work, but they don't work together that well. And a value stream map can really help you to find each other, to make sure you only do the things that are of value for your customers. Yeah, Arnoud,
Yeah,
I see a hand.
I also think that lots of these agile techniques are just BA techniques with a new name. For example, this value stream mapping that you were already highlighting.
Yeah.
Is also something which you are doing when you are drafting process models. When you are looking to the organization or drawing an architecture, an argument, for example, then you are also doing some kind of value stream mapping.
Exactly.
Although you are using a more complex language.
It's true. Yeah, I agree. A value stream for a BA is something they may already know, not within the agile perspective, but within the business process management perspective. So that's what you mean, I think, Arnoud. You have business processes, and you can model your business processes as value streams, value stream maps. So there you have the customer, where it's all about, of course. You have business processes that start with the customer and that end with the customer. So it's all about customers, of course. Yeah. Because sorry?
Maybe also, for example, defining the minimum viable product is also something you normally, what you always do as a business analyst with your stakeholders, to define what are the must-have requirements and which are the requirements you don't need at that moment.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And actually, that's what Kano analysis is also about. It's about dissatisfiers, satisfiers, and delighters. So the dissatisfiers, most of the times, will be must-haves. If you don't have the dissatisfiers in your product, the customer won't buy your product. So your minimum viable product always must have the dissatisfiers. So these will be the must-haves. What I want to say here is that besides the agile techniques, you could also use, of course, the techniques that are in the BABOK guide, like use cases and BPM processes. So it's not that you choose for agile, you only have these techniques. You have these techniques as an addition to the other techniques. So don't think, okay, we're doing agile, we only have these techniques. No, it's not. That's not the case. We have plenty of techniques. You can add the techniques that are helpful to you as a company to this list. Of course, this is not a list that defines what to do.
No, and also I think we can say is that these techniques are not just new techniques. They're just maybe the old BA techniques within a new jacket.
Exactly.
New
exactly.
sauce again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think I was talking about DA, the discipline agile, is what they call themselves a toolkit. So they work the same way. They say, well, okay, these are good practices. They're not best practices. They're practices you can use. And I think agile, I think that's a good thing. Agile is about having a toolkit and knowing what kind of tools, of techniques you can use in a certain situation. And your situation may change with time. And your situation is of course different between different organizations, between different teams within organizations, and even within teams. Within teams during time may change. So that's agile.
That's where the power of a BA really comes in, right? Like any construction person. I mean, if you now call a construction guy and you tell him just do my whole house, then he will also or she will also say, oh, but I need an electrician, I need a plumber, I need somebody that can paint, I need, there are different ways of specialties but as a business analyst, you're this generalist that needs to identify, okay, we have this scenario, then in that case, the outcome can be best done by, using this or these multiple techniques. And it is really the power of the BA to then decide, okay, which technique will work best, or multiple techniques, and in which order. But I think there you can really differentiate as a BA, and instead of just doing a random interview, use certain indeed ways and of techniques, and it's more fun for the stakeholders because it's not, again, just an interview where you're going to ask, hey, what do you want? But really have a more tailored approach.
Exactly.
So maybe coming to the kind of recapping of the session, because I think
we have 2 slides left.
Oh.
I think, Luc.
No.
There was one with the spider web chart.
Oh yeah. I thought
where is that one?
Moved.
Okay. Doesn't matter.
No, I think as a recap, because like I said in the beginning, for me, when I read the perspective chapter, although it's not a huge chapter in the sense that if you really looking at applying for the certification, you don't have to know a lot about the perspective. It's really a small percentage of knowledge that is put into the exam. But still, as a BA, I just want to understand everything. So this was one of the chapters I found most difficult to really put in context of the rest. But now, hopefully, because it's chapter 11, it came after I read all the other chapters. But now, if I would have probably known this earlier, it's also much easier to relate when we're going to talk about the different knowledge areas which are part of the BABOK. Also to relate, which perspectives might be. It's basically also something you need to take into account when you start planning your work or when you start to do your analysis, to already keep in mind these perspectives. So for really perspectives, for me, are a way to tailor my way of working. So indeed already identify a few techniques and tasks up front that I know I need to perform as part of this job. So that is how I use the perspective. So like I told, I'm now working really heavily with the BPM perspective. But coming to my next point of summary is that you can work with multiple perspectives at the same time. It's not that, you have one and that's it. No, I work in an Agile environment, but at the same time I'm working with BPMN. So how does those two work together? Again, it's a new dynamic. It's probably it's not often that you hear, we're going to do agile process design, but in a way I'm putting those together now, so you can also combine perspectives, and I think one of the things that you saw in this presentation is that although a business analyst is a very I would call it generalist, within all these different perspectives, I think we already identified 25 different types of namings for a role you could be, but all of those roles have one thing in common, and that is that they need to understand business analysis techniques and ways of or mindset at least, to make themselves successful in that role. So again, business analysis is a really general role, but at the same time, you see it's really scattered across many different roles. So that's basically my takeaway from the perspectives chapter of the BABOK. Of course, adding the techniques, and I think Agile, it's not for nothing that they now have a real additional book on that. It's definitely the future. But like Arnold was saying, it's a lot of things put in a new jacket.
And very new is the PO analysis. So they now also have analysis for product owners. So you can certify on that one as well, which is very, very good, I think, because many POs are looking for well, what is my job? What do I need to do within my organization, my team? So there's a lot of BA as well, of course. So that's cool.
So with that, I want to thank you again for your participation and engagement. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. We will stay online for now. We'll close down the